Hello and welcome to Eye on Oakland. I'm Chuck Moss, your host, and we have a great show for you. We have one of our favorite guests, actually, Tom Kuhn, who we first met when he was a county commissioner. He's now state representative from the 57th district, which is Troy. Welcome to the show.
Well, happy to be here, Chuck, again to talk with you and to our citizens about what's going on up in Lansing.
Well, good, because we always want to know what's going on in Lansing. No kidding. All right, so my question, let's start out, is what is going on in Lansing?
Well, the good thing is that we have a Republican majority up in Lansing. So one of the big commitments of the new Republican leadership is openness and transparency and bipartisanship. You know, the last 2 years have been pretty strange from my perspective, having come from local government where everything is open and transparent, going up to the state legislature where absolutely nothing was open and transparent. The Democrats did everything in closed doors and rolled out their legislation and their budgets, and we were forced to vote on them without even seeing them. So the new rules are good. We have the new Rule 52 in the House that requires any budget issue to be transparent, to be supported by a legislator, to have a clear community interest. I mean, we've had hundreds of millions to billions of dollars spent on all these legislative gifts to people, and nobody knows where they're going. So that's a really important change that has happened up there.
Well, I'll bet. I got to tell you, majority is more fun than minority. I can tell you that much, no doubt. Now, what are your caucus? I mean, you've given me the priorities, which are good. What would you like? Your personal wish list. I know you mentioned transparency. Let's talk a little bit more about that. What needs to be done?
Well, what needs to be done is that we have committees where the members of the committees get the information ahead of time, that they're not just dumped on them at the last second and rushed through, where you have hearings and you have basic public input into legislation and budgets. That did not happen the last 2 years under Democratic control, and they will happen this year. We're going to have our committees have not been selected yet. They're still working on them to assure bipartisanship and balance. But we expect to see those committee assignments in the next couple of weeks. So that's a really critical aspect, is that we get the bills ahead of time. We have a chance to review them and provide input.
Well, I know that there were times when we were a minority, and I was up there, where we are at the committee hearing, we were at the appropriations meeting, and they would just toss stuff onto us, like, got to vote for it. And what we would do is, I was vice chair, is we would have guys asking questions just to stall it. Well, we had guys in the back reading everything, say, well, what about this? And what would be the effect on dogs? What would be the effect here? And then, okay, you're next, you go next, so that we could take up, 3 minutes by 3 minutes by 3 minutes. So finally it was Chris Harkins, who later became state budget director, saying, okay, yes. So that was, more majority is more fun than that. I understand you have legislation for, though, actual transparency and full disclosure.
Yeah, I proposed a number of bills last term, and part of it is getting them actually in the House rules. And so it was really a positive step when the new speaker, Matt Hall, instituted Rule 52 and required it.
Wait a minute, what is Rule 52?
Rule 52 says that any special budget appropriation has to have a legislator make a public statement that they are supporting this, that this provides community help for this group, that group, and a variety of basic information ahead of time, so everyone knows ahead of time what those bills are and who is supporting them. And I mean, we've seen the last 2 years, millions of dollars going to non-existent corporations who happen to be friends of the then Speaker Tate. That's unacceptable. So it's really a very positive step. We're supposed to get a resolution in the next week or so that gives further details on the openness and transparency that is going to be required for that.
That's shocking to me that they can. I mean, we could disagree with what they want to spend the money on, but you at least know where it's going. For them to just throw stuff to shell core, I mean, that's an invitation to corruption. I'll just say that.
Well, for sure, and again, that's one of the main goals of the Rule 52 and the resolution that sets out all the different requirements of it to avoid these shell corporations and other phony fronts that have been given millions of our state tax dollars the last couple of years.
Well, by giving out once again phony corporations, this is shocking to me that they're doing it. People will try to get away with anything, but is this being investigated? Maybe this Attorney General. Well, okay, Attorney General's office. All right. Well, I mean, is anyone looking into it?
Well, that's another part of our new leadership structure. We have a new committee called the Oversight Committee, and they've had oversight committees in the past, but this committee has been given ongoing subpoena powers and has, I think, 4 or 5 distinct subcommittees that will be looking specifically into these issues. So, we need to have oversight of the bureaucracy up here. We need to have oversight of government spending, and the Speaker Hall has been very strong on this issue. And so we have this new committee. It's going to be chaired by Jay DeBoyer, who is a very strong advocate for openness and transparency.
Well, good. Is there any one talk about the revolving door between the legislature and legislators and maybe lobby firms? I'll be honest. Well, what else is an ex-legislator good for other than doing TV shows? Is there any talk about that?
Well, Chuck, there are some bills on that. We're early in the session. Again, we haven't had any committee meetings, but I'm sure we'll see a number of bills asking that be changed. As you know, that's something that that people, you and I and others have wanted to change for a long, long time, but it's very hard to get that accomplished up there in Lansing.
Well, you want to talk about transparency. One big deal with transparency is the tax credits that are handed out by the governor, because that's big money. It's one thing, back, once again, I'm telling you back in the day, is that when the esteemed and honorable Jennifer Mulhern Granholm left, and we started going through the desk drawers, we found tons of these things, and we had given away millions and millions of dollars in tax revenue that we could not afford to lose. But it was all kind of off budget. We didn't know that we had given this money away. Now, if you cut the budget, you don't have it. But if they've just given a tax credit away to a favored firm, that's money you're not going to have. Is there any special transparency or accounting item to keep track of the tax credits given out?
Well, again, that's one of the subcommittees that the Speaker has created under the Oversight Committee. I'm sure they're going to look into it very carefully because, the Speaker has indicated that the number one priority for us this session should be local roads, infrastructure, and public safety. And there's hundreds of millions, if not billions of dollars that are being siphoned off for these secret projects. And if that money were dedicated to our local roads, and we are committed in the House to make sure that money does get committed to local roads, infrastructure, and public safety, we can afford to fix our roads. And, we've heard, like, I don't know how many years ago the governor said she wanted to fix the damn roads, but she was up there for how many years and she spent nothing on the local roads. We're going to spend money on the local roads. And this is one of the areas where, there's literally billions of dollars being wasted. And we want that money redirected so it actually helps people.
Well, she said she was going to fix I wouldn't say, fix the damn roads. That was her keystone, and she didn't fix the damn roads. And when she ran for reelection, she ran as governor abortion. So I guess that's the end of the roads. But yes, so now you mentioned infrastructure. So how so? What that's a priority. Infrastructure is good. I'm from Midland, and believe me, if you don't keep, you got to fix up the damn roads, you got to fix the damn dams, or you ended up with water all through your downtown. What about what about infrastructure?
Well, infrastructure is extremely important. You and I know this both from our work on the city and the
And from
county
driving,
governments.
just driving your car.
Yeah, you know it from driving your car. I mean, the roads are the most obvious, but even beyond those, we have our sewers, we have our other, you know, like the GWK facility. We
The
have lots of.
GWK facility. What is that called now? What's the name of that?
Uh, that's what they call it. It's the George W. Kuhn uh, facility. It holds all this waste from southeast Oakland County.
That's our stormwater drain. That's our stormwater drain system too. Yeah.
Yeah, stormwater and combined sewer. So when it overflows, it goes into the Clinton River and out to Lake St. Clair. So that's a big issue for many of us. We want to fix that and make sure that there's adequate storage facility there at that facility so that we don't have these, overflows of fecal material.
Poop. Yeah, bad stuff. Yeah, yeah. So yeah, that's definitely that should be a no-brainer. I mean, I got to say, if you're going to spend money on your house, you need to have your own infrastructure, your roof, your foundation has got to be done first.
Yeah, for sure. And so, again, people don't often see the problems with our sewers and our drains and our and the impact that it has on our streams and lakes and rivers. And but that's a very critical part of the infrastructure needs that we have here in Southeast Oakland.
Yes, bridges. That's another one. Bridges. I mean, you don't think of bridges until they fall down, and you don't want them to fall down if you're underneath them, and certainly if you're not on them.
Yeah, and again, part of the problem is local roads and bridges have been seriously underfunded, and for whatever reason, there's been no effort to use the money. I mean, the state had $9 billion surplus last session, and it was used to pay off big corporations and special projects for legislators. $9 billion, and none of it went to local roads and bridges. I mean, we need to fund our local roads, make sure that they are adequately maintained.
Well, I know we have local roads, and the road commission takes care of them, which is a good thing. But you have to actually rebuild them. I remember the road commission guys telling us. Well, first of all, it's back in the early zeros, whatever we call that decade, the zips, aughts, that a certain percentage of roads were in the red, the bad zone. And they came back a few years later and found it was a horrible percentage, like 40%, maybe 60 were actually in almost an emergency, and then it costs the earth to fix them again. Sounds to me like a priority. Who's against it? Why would they be against it?
Well, again, Governor Snyder addressed this with the Republican legislators in whatever it was, 2014, 2016, and that gave a certain amount to local roads. But, paying off big corporations and paying off legislators for their special projects apparently have been more important for the Democrats the last couple of years.
Yes. Well, tax credits and all that. So I've got a question. You're not a newbie anymore. You're now a returning veteran. What lessons do you think you kind of learn and bring to the job now that you're, like I said, you've got your stripes?
Well, again, number one with me is always openness and transparency. We have to run the government in a way that our legislators, that the public, the press, everyone knows what's going on up there and has input into what the legislation and the budgets are. We got a budget last year on June 27th, to over 2,000 pages. No one had the budget until after the vote at 2 or 3 or 4 a.m. in the morning when we had to vote on it. No one had it. And so these things need to be open, they need to be transparent, and people need to have ability to provide input into these important matters for the state.
Well, the old Nancy Pelosi, you got to vote for it to know what's in it. That ain't gonna fly. That's just cynical and absurd. But what about that? Now, one thing it's as I'm talking about is it's up there is the idea of tips and the taxation of tips and who's forced to pay for it, and also mandatory sick leave for, let's say, restaurants and stuff. That strikes me as a very big issue.
Yeah, it's been the number one issue that we've addressed here in the House since January 1, when the Republicans took control of the House. Set up a special committee with principal emphasis on bipartisanship. We wanted to make sure that we had a committee that would look at this issue openly, transparently, and in a bipartisan manner. What happened was, yeah.
Bipartisanship, yeah, nice if you can get it. Are they cooperating with you?
Well, I'll just say this. The speaker set up this committee, and they reported out 2 bills, and they were both voted out without any opposition by any Republican or any Democrat on those committees. So, yes, bipartisanship works when there's a commitment to it. The Supreme Court passed this imposed this radical new wage rate for restaurant tips to do away with the tip wage and earned sick time that was unworkable, truly unworkable. And it impacts small businesses. It impacts our local charities. Every single organization in our state has to do this idiotic, bureaucratic, red tape regulations set by the state Supreme Court. And it's ridiculous. But we're working on it. The bills were passed out of committee unanimously to modify both the tip wage and the earned sick time regulations and rules. And it came to the House, and the House passed them with both, I would say, I think 63 and 67 votes for each of those, and you only need 56 to pass. So it had supporters on both sides of the aisle.
Well, my understanding about the sick time is that it's like about 9 days in the year where you can just not show up to work, and you just don't show up to work. You don't have to call, you don't have to do anything. Nobody can even ask you about it. You just don't show up, and it's okay because you have taken one of your voluntary sick days. Now, years and years ago, I got out of college. I didn't get in anywhere. I decided, so I spent a year working as a waiter at the Baker's Banquet Restaurant in East Lansing. And if I just didn't show up, well, first of all, I get fired. Well, I should, but if I didn't show up, somebody else would have to handle the tables. It would be a real problem. And if I didn't even give people notice, I mean, they couldn't run the restaurant. And as for the tips, if they had to pay me whatever it is, they might go out of business. So what are people thinking when they pass these kinds of things? Or don't they care?
I don't know what was in the mind of the state Supreme Court. I honestly believe they changed the Constitution to be able to get there, and then they wanted to become a super legislature, and they came up with this stupid legislative rule.
Wouldn't be the only ones.
Well, I mean, again, I can't tell you what their thinking is, but the bottom line is it not merely affects restaurants, but any small business that requires employees to be there. I mean, people can just not show up. I mean, if you're a small business that requires an assembly line or any sort of operation, to have people not show up for days without notice, that undermines their ability to actually operate.
Yeah, I just find the whole idea, I mean, it's almost laughable. Yeah, I don't have to show up. What the heck? I mean, any job I've ever had, if you don't show up without notice and you don't have a good reason, like, sorry, I was in a car wreck or something, you're fired. As well, you should be. But I had a person from the Mackinac Center on one of my other shows who said that he just started out by saying, well, the state Supreme Court wrote the legislation. I said, what? Wait a minute, stop here. What do you mean? The state Supreme Court wrote the legislation? Yeah. These guys, I guess you can vote them out, but it's not like I thought that, Mr. Bill becomes law, he has to go up to Capitol Hill and all that. I don't see where judges write laws.
Well, it's certainly been the role of judges usually to evaluate laws and interpret laws, not write laws. And this is an extreme example where they just out of whole cloth made up this new law. And, they said, well, it's sort of based on this referendum that from 7 or 8 years ago, but it really wasn't. They changed the law. They made it up as they went on, and it's pretty amazing. It's certainly not how I would expect a court to operate.
Well, no. I mean, we talk about the rule of law. The rule of law is one thing. The rule of lawyers is another. Not that I got anything against lawyers. I think you're one. I know I am. So we gotta at least cut some slack here. But laws are supposed to be made by elected legislators who then send it to the elected executive, who can either veto it or not. So that's the way the system's supposed to work. So now you're a budget guy. I was too, and so you're looking at budget stuff. What's maybe highlights? Is it looking good, bad, cut, whatever? What?
Well, again, the number one goal is to fund our local roads and infrastructure and public safety. And the speaker has identified, $3.9 billion that can be reallocated from the existing, from last year's budget to fund that, on an ongoing basis. That's going to be the number one goal that we're going to have. We're going to have to fund our local roads and infrastructure without raising taxes, without raising fees, without, adding on more burdens to the public. It's not necessary. The money is there. It's being used inappropriately, and we need to make that our number one budget priority, and it is our number one budget priority.
Well, good. I don't know if you saw in Crane's, I think it's Crane's Detroit Business, and they had an article about Michigan's public collapse in public school enrollment. There are no kids. I mean, people are trying to say, well, it's charters. Well, no, there just aren't the kids, which means that that's population reduction for sure. Now, that's to me a clear sign that Whitmer's Michigan is the era of stagnation. It's what it is. It's the era of stagnation. And is there we're being left behind. Are there any plans or urgency to get Michigan moving again?
Well, of course. And, that's part of the whole concept that we're concerned about is what can we do to promote the future of Michigan? For our kids, for our grandkids, we need to have ongoing businesses that are able to do provide jobs for our many very, very talented citizens. It's sort of interesting. One of the main things, and I don't know how much time we have to get into this mandate.
We have time. We've got some time. Sure. Go for it.
Yeah, I mean, this mandate on energy where we do away with reliable gas and atomic energy and rely on unreliable solar and wind energy. I mean, it's crazy. It's absolutely crazy. It's totally inefficient and it's totally unreliable. And here it is. What's the temperature out there today, Chuck? Do you think 15, 20? Just imagine us.
It has gone up to a balmy, I want to say 23. It's January.
And imagine if we had reliance solely on wind and solar and we had shortages of electricity. That is what will happen under the governor's plan. And it's idiotic, and it's going to cost a lot of money. For this inefficient energy source. And that drives industry, it drives business out of this state. You talk about all the AI and these, the massive amount of energy that they need. They can't do it in our state if we've gone away, set up a mandate where we're not going to use gas, we're not going to use any fossil fuels, we're not going to use any atomic fuels. They're not going to come here, and that's a huge future throughout our country. Is this whole AI and the amount of energy that is going to be required to power it.
Well, I know that we don't have to reinvent the wheel on the argument here. Germany, once the third largest economy in the world, and maybe it is, it might still be, has been rapidly deindustrializing and going down and having unemployment problems because they don't have the basic energy. For a while, they made up for it by importing electricity from Poland, which has coal plants. So we're being so environmentally, but even that isn't working now. So Germany is essentially deindustrializing. We don't want to do that, and it's a clear example. We don't have to, it's not hypothetical.
Exactly, and this is America. Our goal is to serve our citizens, to give citizens choice, to give them jobs. It's not to follow some radical ideology into a rabbit hole.
Well, there's clean coal. It's not like, Pittsburgh in 1947 or something, World War II. It's the economy, the technology has changed a bit. But it's very interesting. I mean, we've got to sort of get Michigan moving again. I think the disincentives from taxation and regulation alone, I pull that stuff up. And I'll be honest, right to work was important to me. I voted for right to work. It took a lot of doing to get done. There were some, I'd have police protection at my house for a couple of days, and people threatened. Believe me, they threatened to poison my dogs. And now she was just profoundly reactionary. Well, we're going to run out of time. We got a little less than a minute. What would you say is the future? What's coming down the pike of the legislature?
What's coming down the pike in the House is going to be openness, transparency, commitment to local roads, infrastructure, and public safety. That's going to be the number one priority, and you are going to see that throughout this session.
Well, good. Anything on getting people back to work real fast? Is Lansing still a ghost town? I remember standing in Michigan and Capitol in rush hour, and there's nobody there.
Well, that's another issue. We need to get our state workers back on the job, and I know that our oversight committees are going to look closely at that issue, as well as our appropriations committee, and trying to assure that the state workers are actually doing their job on the job and serving the citizens.
Well, that would be good. I mean, we're paying them enough. All right. Well, thank you. Talking to us, State Representative Tom Kuhn from the 57th District, Troy and Macomb County. I'm Chuck Moss, and thank you for joining us here on Eye on Oakland.